Section 1. A World Divided, the Dawn of the Cold War. This period marked the beginning of a new era in global politics, one that would shape the world for decades to come. The year is 1945. The world stands at a crossroads, emerging from the devastation of World War II. World War II, a conflict that engulfed the globe, finally ends. Nations are left to pick up the pieces and rebuild. Victory is achieved, but a new struggle emerges from the ashes. The world is no longer united against a common enemy. This is the Cold War, a period of geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. It is a time of uncertainty and fear. These two superpowers, once allies against a common enemy, now find themselves on opposing sides of a divided world. Their relationship is strained and fraught with suspicion. The Cold War was not a traditional war with soldiers and battlefields. Instead, it was a war fought in the shadows through espionage, propaganda, and proxy conflicts. It was a war of ideologies, a clash between two very different ways of life. Each side sought to prove the superiority of its system. The United States championed capitalism and democracy, emphasizing individual freedom and economic opportunity. It portrayed itself as the defender of the free world. The Soviet Union, on the other hand, promoted communism, advocating for a classless society with state control over the means of production. It aimed to spread its revolutionary ideals across the globe. The stakes were incredibly high, with both nations amassing vast arsenals of nuclear weapons, capable of unprecedented destruction. The world held its breath, hoping to avoid a catastrophic conflict. Section 2. Capitalism versus communism, a clash of ideologies. This was not just a political or military standoff. It was a battle of ideas, a struggle to define the future of human society. At the heart of the Cold War was a fundamental disagreement about the best way to organize society and govern nations. This ideological conflict was deeply rooted in contrasting visions of human progress and societal organization. Capitalism, embraced by the United States and its allies, promoted free markets, private ownership, and individual initiative. It was seen as a system that encouraged innovation, rewarded hard work, and provided opportunities for personal advancement. It promised prosperity and freedom, but critics argued it led to inequality and exploitation. While many thrived, others were left behind, creating a divide between the wealthy and the poor. Communism, the ideology of the Soviet Union, sought to create a classless society where wealth and resources were shared equally. It envisioned a world where everyone had what they needed, and no one was left wanting. It aimed to eliminate poverty and exploitation, but its detractors argued it stifled individual freedom and economic growth. Critics pointed out that the lack of personal incentives could lead to stagnation and inefficiency. This clash of ideologies played out on a global stage, shaping the destinies of nations and influencing the lives of billions. The world watched as these two superpowers vied for dominance, each believing their system was the key to a better future for humanity. Section 3. Seeds of Distrust, from Alliance to Adversaries. The uneasy alliance between the United States and the Soviet Union during World War II began to unravel even before the war's end. Mutual suspicion and distrust grew, fueled by ideological differences and conflicting post-war visions for Europe. The United States, wary of Soviet expansionism, sought to contain the spread of communism. The Soviet Union, feeling threatened by the West, aimed to secure its borders and expand its sphere of influence. These competing interests created a climate of suspicion and hostility, setting the stage for a protracted standoff. Section 4. The Iron Curtain falls, dividing Europe. As the Cold War intensified, Europe became a key battleground in the ideological struggle between East and West. A metaphorical Iron Curtain descended, dividing the continent into two opposing blocs. Western Europe, aligned with the United States, embraced democracy and market economies. Eastern Europe, under Soviet influence, became a collection of satellite states ruled by communist regimes. The division of Europe was a stark reminder of the deep ideological rift that separated the two superpowers and their respective allies. Section 5. A world on edge, the nuclear arms race. One of the most dangerous dimensions of the Cold War was, without a doubt, the relentless pursuit of nuclear weapons by both the United States and the Soviet Union. The development and stockpiling of these devastating weapons of mass destruction created an atmosphere of constant fear and uncertainty. The world watched nervously as the two superpowers engaged in a perilous arms race, each striving to outdo the other in terms of nuclear capability. The threat of nuclear annihilation loomed large, casting a dark shadow over the entire planet. Indeed, the Cold War became a high-stakes game of chess, with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. Section 6. Beyond the battlefield, proxy wars and global influence. The Cold War extended far beyond the borders of Europe, reaching into every corner of the globe. It was not just a battle of ideologies confined to the superpowers' homelands, but a worldwide struggle that influenced countless nations. Proxy wars, conflicts fought between third parties supported by the superpowers, became a tragic hallmark of the era. From Korea to Vietnam, Afghanistan to Angola, these wars were fueled by the larger geopolitical tensions of the time. These regional conflicts served as battlegrounds for the larger ideological struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union. Each side sought to expand its influence and promote its political and economic systems. Both superpowers provided military and economic assistance to their respective allies, often escalating the conflicts. This support included weapons, training, and financial aid, which intensified the fighting and prolonged the wars, fueling conflicts that often had devastating consequences for the countries involved. The human cost was immense, with millions of lives lost and entire regions left in ruins. The Cold War's global reach left an indelible mark on the developing world, creating a legacy of political instability and economic hardship. Many nations found themselves caught in the crossfire, struggling to navigate the pressures from both superpowers, shaping political landscapes and influencing the course of history for generations to come. The decisions made during this period continue to affect international relations and the internal dynamics of many countries today. The Cold War rivalry extended beyond Earth's atmosphere and into the vast expanse of space. The space race became a symbol of technological prowess and national pride. The Soviet Union struck first, launching Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite, in 1957. This achievement sent shockwaves through the United States, spurring a renewed emphasis on science and technology education. The United States responded with vigor, ultimately achieving a historic milestone in 1969, when Neil Armstrong became the first human to walk on the moon. The space race, while a testament to human ingenuity, also underscored the intense competition and mistrust that characterized the Cold War era. By the 1980s, the Cold War began to show signs of thawing. Economic stagnation in the Soviet Union, coupled with growing internal dissent, weakened the communist bloc. The charismatic leadership of US President Ronald Reagan and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev played a pivotal role in easing tensions. Gorbachev's policies of glasnost, openness, and perestroika restructuring aimed to reform the Soviet system, but they also unleashed forces that ultimately led to its demise. In 1989, the Berlin Wall, a potent symbol of the Cold War divide, fell, signaling the imminent collapse of communism in Eastern Europe. 2 years later, the Soviet Union itself dissolved, marking the end of the Cold War. The Cold War, though a conflict fought without direct military confrontation between the superpowers, cast a long shadow over the second half of the 20th century. It left an indelible mark on global politics, economics, and culture. The world emerged from the Cold War a very different place. The bipolar system, dominated by two superpowers, gave way to a more multipolar world. The United States emerged as the sole superpower, but new centers of power, such as China, began to assert themselves on the world stage. Even though the Cold War ended decades ago, its legacy continues to shape the 21st century. The world still grapples with the consequences of the ideological battles, proxy wars, and nuclear proliferation that defined the era. The rivalry between the United States and Russia, though different in nature from the Cold War, echoes the tensions of the past. The rise of new global powers, such as China, adds complexity to the geopolitical landscape, creating new challenges and opportunities for international cooperation and competition. The lessons learned from the Cold War, particularly the importance of diplomacy, dialogue, and understanding, remain as relevant as ever in our interconnected and rapidly changing world.